Deputy Luke Ming Flanagan. Please, please, please. Deputy Luke Ming Flanagan on behalf of the technical group. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Taoiseach, your cabinet colleague, Minister Varadkar, described the Garda whistleblowers as distinguished. Other than that, there have been no real encouragement from the government for those who take such courageous actions. So for anyone to step forward again, it would take an even greater act of bravery than ever before. I have, in the past week, been approached under the Garda Siochana Act by a serving member of the Garda with a serious allegation of corruption within the National Drug Squad. This morning, I brought the evidence I was presented with to GSOC in the company of former Garda John Wilson. However, the problem we have is that the Garda who gave me the evidence is terrified that members of the Gardaí who are serving with GSOC could somehow leak this information, and as a result, evidence would be tampered with. Now, the Garda in question may have no need to be afraid, but that is beside the point. The bigger issue is that it took so long as serving members of the Gardaí, that so long as serving members of the Gardaí are working within GSOC, how can such distinguished people trust it? I understand that the government are currently reviewing the operation of GSOC, but this is all taking too long. In the meantime, however, those who wish to seek justice are left with nowhere to go, except for our offices, that is. You did have the opportunity last year in this House to act, but instead you rubbished Deputy Wallace's policing bill and dismissed the idea by basically saying there was no problem at all. It was a worrying ordeal for the Garda in question to go to GSOC, given his very understandable concern about confidentiality. However, this worry was significantly increased this morning when it became obvious that we were under surveillance by an unmarked Garda car whilst waiting in the now infamous Insomnia Cafe adjacent to GSOC's premises. John Wilson, who was there with me for support, left the cafe momentarily to establish what was going on. He was subsequently followed down the street by the unmarked Garda car. So what was all of this about? It is bad enough that the independence of GSOC is questionable, but for the people who were about to report an incident to be put under surveillance by an unmarked squad car is, to say the least, astonishing. So, An Taoiseach, as the leader of this country, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do, bearing in mind that we have had good people that are being silenced and the legislation which you are standing by is anything but fit for purpose?
I don't know. I have no information about Deputy Flanagan being followed or being under surveillance in an unmarked car. Sharp man to know that an unmarked car was actually shadowing you. Maybe it wasn't you at all. They had under surveillance. Maybe they thought there was somebody dealing. I don't know. But the position is that, as Deputy Flanagan is aware, we're waiting a report. I'm awaiting a report from Mr. Gearan SC. We're waiting a report from Justice Cook. The Oireachtas Committee are looking at the terms of reference in respect of GSOC, and these are matters that are of the greatest importance. You yourself, along with a number of other deputies, Deputy Daly and Deputy Wallace, presented me with a number of documents in respect of various allegations, which I'm following up at your request, and hopefully we'll have a proper and thorough response for you. But I would say, Deputy, it seems as if anybody who's had any connection with the Garda over the last 30 years seems to want to bring forward reports and comments which we want to devise a system to be able to deal with these fairly and thoroughly in the interests of following through on allegations, so that if they're true, that they be dealt with, and that if they're not be true, that be sorted out as well. So I can't comment upon your report here to the House of being under surveillance and being followed or whatever. But if you want to give me whatever documentation you have there, I'll treat it in the utmost confidence unless you say otherwise. I'll attempt to have a follow-through made for you, Deputy Flanagan. So in regard to the legislation that we had from Deputy Wallace last year. As I say, whenever the Kieran report comes in, I've already said in the House that whatever recommendations it makes will be followed through. There are a whole range of issues here in regard to justice and the different systems that are now being analysed and investigated, and the House will have full sight of those for discussion and for implementation of whatever recommendations come forward, including yourself.
Deputy Flanagan.
Taoiseach, I think you've just made the situation worse, because the person who came to me, I have to say, they were terrified to come forward and do what they were going to do. And they came to a member of Dáil Éireann because that is what they felt as the only action they could take. And I brought it here into the chamber today, where many distinguished people have served down through the years, and we today have our Taoiseach stand up and make a joke out of it. This person was terrified to come forward. Terrified to come forward for obvious reasons, given that in the past people who have come forward, such as John Wilson in the gallery there, had a rat hung on his door for doing the right thing. Yet today, I was hoping maybe you might give a little bit of encouragement. And the bigger issue here is not this individual case. It is the fact that no one can have confidence in GSOC so long as serving members of the Garda Siochana are operating within it. But that was bad enough, and that was the incident, that was the issue that I intended to bring to you here today. But then to actually see a situation where we are being followed by an unmarked car with two obviously identifiable police officers in it, and you seem to make little of it and make a joke of it. When are you going to do something about this? You need to do this quickly, because people are losing faith in what they have to have faith in, the Garda Siochana. Whether it be my wife or my kids, if something happens in the morning, we've got to go to them, we've got to trust them. But at the moment, that trust is not on the floor, it's below the floor. You need to deal with this seriously, Taoiseach, and I have to say, the one thing I was certain about coming in here today is that you wouldn't answer my question, because you've never answered a question since I came in here. Can you try and make it a first? Will you tell me and tell the people of Ireland that you're going to do something about this? Because after that incident, that man wasn't terrified anymore. He was quivering. He was on the verge of breaking down. I come in here and you make a joke out of it. You are a disgrace.
Sorry, this is question time, please.
I made no joke of any comment that you made. You walk in here, and you give a report to the people of Ireland about being followed, about being under surveillance. I know nothing about this. If you want to tell more stories or more allegations, I don't have any information about what you say. But I will say this to you, Deputy Flanagan. I will say this to you. The whistleblowers legislation is being treated here with proper respect and will be dealt with in a way that is a pretty radical change from what applied before. I note the comments of the Interim Commissioner of the Gardaí, where there's room for dissenting voices, where there is a need, where whistleblowers come forward to be protected. You're aware that the government has made a decision to have a statutory independent authority set up for the Gardaí. I myself chair the new committee in respect of justice reform and the committee dealing with the independent and statutory authority for the Gardaí. It had its first meeting this week. The process is now being set in train for that, for public consultation, for hearings by the appropriate committee, for coming back here to the Dáil by July with recommendations for the setting up of an independent and statutory authority. Clearly also the Gearan report when it comes forward and the Cook report when it comes forward will be published and will be debated here, and let's see what the recommendations that are contained therein. Now, it ill behoves you to come in here and make your allegations about treating comments that you make as a joke. I assume that you're quite serious in what you're saying. I don't know the person you're speaking about. I do not know the Garda you refer to. But I invite you, if you wish, to have the information that you've got from the person who's terrified or who's very uneasy about coming forward, to give me that information, and we'll treat it with the utmost confidentiality and respect that it deserves, Deputy Flanagan.
Thank you. That completes leaders' questions for today.